Hey, so this is entitled The Visual Does All the Work. So there's a visual that the different parts of your being have on the path ahead. The visual, once you see it, the work kicks in. It's kind of like saying the dentist does all the work. You don't feel your own tooth. Doesn't mean there won't be pain in the process, but it's so that the dental work provides a less painful time down the road. Same thing with spiritual transformation. So the visual does all the work. There's the ethereal spirit that your mentors gave you through teachings that has a conforming effect if you are dedicated, you're humble, to your leadership. You will be raised up in the image of that teaching. The teaching is it fathers the traits in you. Therefore, the teaching is the Abba, the Father that imbues the traits that you hope to have down the road. Romans 8 says if we have acquired that division, there's no need for faith. But until then, we do with patience wait for it. So there's the longing uh, in our humanity. Romans 8, the creation within us longs to see, in other words, to experience, to become the manifestation of the sons of God. The creation groans to see the manifestation of the sons of God. Then there's the visual. Once that's, let's say you endured 10, 15 years and you've gained critical mass of spirit. You're walking in the Sabbath rest. You're not struggling with the growing pains. You're not, you've come into a place where you have become just like the teachings and the spirit that you were given through your mentors, through your holy book, through your literature, Buddhist literature, Hindu literature, Hermetic literature, the Bible, whatever it was that raised you to that point. Jesus said in Matthew 6, you cannot, by taking thought, add 1 inch to your stature. So think Ephesians 4, coming to the fullness of the measure of the stature, the height, the stature of Christ. So you cannot, by taking thought, add 1 inch to your height, to your spiritual height. It's the visual. It's the visual. What do you see? What do you see in the eyes of your spirit? Because that's what you're going to become. So take heed that the teachings are healthy. Because if the teachings are unhealthy, you become unhealthy. Okay, so let's say you hang in there 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Now you recognize, and other people recognize, that you are just like the original teachings. Your persona, your traits, what you're known for. The mark on your forehead, how you think, the mark on your hand, what you do with your life. So this is the quantum field within you that is now it's the field that's producing the wheat. But Jesus spoke of the wheat being harvested, and the chaff that's when you can deal with the chaff. That's when you can deal with the chaff. And here comes the Queen of Sheba. Jesus said to the Pharisees, the Queen of Sheba will rise in judgment against this generation. That's a mystical pattern for every human, All 8 billion people on the planet will experience the Queen of Sheba rising in judgment against what they have thus far generated after they have matured in it. That includes the atheist who lives by the moral compass, which is the spirit. They won't call it the spirit, but an atheist who lives by the moral compass is generally a much more Christ-like being than Christians today. We will experience the wheat and the chaff in our field. That's just the way the pattern works. And then the Queen of Sheba rises in judgment against the chaff element, so that you can kick in your 2 Peter 3:10 process, a new sound. That judgment destroys the chaff, destroys the generation, what you've generated thus far, destroys the unhealthy part. There's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Depart from me, I never knew you, to the doctrines that produce some unhealthy chaff in your life. There's no teaching series that's going to be perfect. And and what works for one might not work for another. So this is your responsibility as a creative being to create the best you possible. So the tree of knowledge of good and evil is Eve, which is also called the serpent of wisdom. This is Jesus having his own judgment day, where he causes Yahweh to depart and he accepts Abba. Yahweh once again quotes, like he did, and says to Jesus what Yahweh said in Daniel chapter 4. Yahweh says to Nebuchadnezzar, all the kingdoms of the earth are mine. All the kingdoms of the earth are mine. I can give them to whom I will. So he said that to Nebuchadnezzar. Now he says that to Jesus, to hold on. The voice of Eden, who tries to curse the serpent of progression, moving from the belly of a greater human story, a greater empathy, a greater human-to-human relationship, giving a miracle to the Canaanite woman, giving a miracle eventually to the Roman centurion. Pagan people who he was raised to believe were enemies were actually his friends. He found out he was lied to. So he said, depart, Yahweh, who told me that these people were my enemies, depart. Maybe a few MAGA people will say, depart, Jesus, white supremacist Jesus, who we inherited from the Ku Klux Klan, who told me that black, brown, and gay, trans people, Palestinians were our enemies. I rebuke you. You were never me. Depart from me. I never knew you, because the consciousness I'm coming into never was you, ultimately. That's Judgment Day. And he creates from his Queen of Sheba, properties within that archetype of the Queen of Sheba, rose in judgment against the psychological properties he was groomed and raised in, made those things depart by integrating, seeing all of it. Oh, hey, sorry. Would not allow the old energetic signature that he took on and was clothed with, the heavenly clothing he was clothed with, that Caiaphas still had, that Saul of Tarsus still had at that time. The heavenly clothing. Removed it for the wedding garment. And the wedding garment is, see, in the law of Moses, we were clothed with the earthy nature that saw ourselves as sinners and needed blood atonement. In the Jesus movement to come, we were clothed with the heavenly, but the heavenly of Jesus, not the heavenly of Moses. 2 Peter 3:10 removed the heavens of Moses, created a new heavens and a new earth, a new spirit imbuing, and a new personification, heaven and earth. But it foreshadows Revelation 21, the bride descending to heal the nations, where the tree of life is revealed, spirit magnetized into the human body, rather than living above the human body. Because we realize we were lied to. Romans 12:1 is a lie. It says, sacrifice yourself on the altar of spirit. Live above your human self. That's a lie. The human is the Holy Grail, the Imago Dei, the image of God. So Jesus starts, he only had 3 years of ministry, so he starts to become more comfortable in his humanity. The Pharisees faulted him for drinking too much wine and eating too much food, hanging out with prostitutes, tax collectors, people of a sinful reputation. Remember the woman with the alabaster oil? It says she was of a sinful reputation. That's who his tribe was starting to become, because he was becoming a real person. That's the feminine aspect, the ruach, the breath of life, the feminine spirit within the Godhead started to descend into his human body. He's taking on the beginning stage of the wedding garment, where heaven and earth within are married, rather than you living in the heavenly places only. 2 Corinthians 5 says we groan to be clothed with our heavenly house. Okay. But by dissolving the earthy, yeah, that was the Second Testament. We're coming into the Third Testament, the age of Aquarius, which is the wedding garment. Heaven and earth married within. And so when we see the over-detachment from humanity, from our own humanity, where we were told either in Pentecostalism that sexuality is sin, or in New Age that emotion is sin, everything anti-human has to go away. The Queen of Sheba will judge the chaff of that field, so that the Eve properties can kick in and give birth to a healthier, better, greater, more expansive, more inclusive, more loving spirit. Spirit can't do it by itself. It has to be given birth to by Eve. Only Eve can give birth. Adam can't do it. I am the Lord, I change not. I change not. Eve gives birth once Queen of Sheba is done judging, discerning what's difference between good and evil in the field, the quantum field that you've been partaking of and drawing from, the void of potentialities that you've reached into and pulled out. In Pentecost, I reached into the quantum field and pulled out a spirit dominating over physical body reality, and I achieved that reality. 16 years of blood, sweat, and tears, 16 years of dedication, and then I came into that Sabbath rest. 10 years after that, I reached into the quantum field again and pulled out a spirit-body equality, because that was the next evolution. We go in evolution, evolution, evolution. All evolution starts with the Queen of Sheba rising in judgment against what you've generated thus far. You bless where you've been, but you have to remove it by the 2 Peter 3:10 principle, a new sound coming from your heart that removes the heavens that you've created so that a new heavens can be created, personified in your earthen man. And around the time of Carlton Pearson, a lot of us could see the chaff in our Pentecost or Baptist field. That hell doctrine was chaff. The pastor having full control of your life and telling you who to marry was chaff, not wheat. The enhancing of our spiritual gifts during the Pentecostal days, the living, vital, heart-to-heart, intimate relationship with God, that was the wheat. It wasn't religion. It was a living, vital, glorious presence we walked in Pentecost. But we put away the chaff. We came into spirit over emotion rather than spirit over sex. In the New Age, New Thought, it was more spirit over emotion. It was like, it was Joe Dispenza. It was don't speak anything negative because you'll collapse a negative reality. Once again, entering through the doors of superstition that the human is bad somehow. Truth is, if you don't speak how you feel, you won't integrate. You'll just live above it and it'll seep up later in a darker form. So if you integrate by speaking how you feel, sometimes you have to vent. Complaint and hopelessness will create more of the same, but complaint with the expectation for change. Venting with the expectation, the visual for change, is what causes change, because you've integrated, you've talked with the enemies in the gates, you've gone to the gates of your emotions, the deep woundedness, you've gone to those, you've not lived above for it to spring up later in a darker form. You've gone to those places, spoken everything that's there so that it can all be in the light. Spirit and flesh have now married each other, integrated. Your sexual ecstasy, you've integrated with it, being very present to your orgasm, very present to your orientation, your sexuality, your lovemaking with your spouse, whether it's by yourself or with all consenting adult sex that doesn't go against somebody's arrangement, all consenting adult sex that is not harmful to someone, is holy. This is not in the category of the Second Testament where Paul said all things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient. No, this is expedient. This is holy. Sex is as holy and essential as meditation, if that's something you desire. Some people are born asexual with no desire for sex. That's their holy ground. So the angst of social injustice, we speak out against it. We throw off all of the New Age teachers that say that that's being judgmental, because they don't want to undo their own white supremacy that they were born with from 400 years of colonialism. How could you not have it? You're born from 400 years. The original Pharaoh who exalted the Jewish man Joseph, the next Pharaoh after him hated Joseph, hated the Jews, took them on as slaves, and 400 years later, it was the children of those original Egyptians that took the Jews on as slaves. It was 400 years later that the judgment happened. The Queen of Sheba rose through Moses, judged it with the 7 plagues, and set the captives free. And the same thing's going to happen in the United States. All black, brown, gay, trans, Palestinian, Ukrainian, everybody's going to be set free. Because the Queen of Sheba is judging, first of all, in your temple, to put away anti-human superstition, teachings that had fathered those traits in you. It's going to, because the sea is going to give up her dead. Revelation chapter 20. The sea is going to give up her dead, and the books will be open, and you'll see it plainly for what it really is. All right, you'll be convicted of racism, homophobia, misogyny, because it came up in your sea, the primordial waters of the subconscious. It came up for you to see it, and you are in liberty. If you say that's the truth about me, I am going to change. But if you really don't want to change, then you'll attach guilt and shame to it. Because guilt and shame, if you feel guilty or shameful about it, you'll never change. Guilt and shame is the creation of demons. Guilt and shame is the creation of the movie The Exorcist was based off of young Pentecostal girl who her mother caught her masturbating and shamed her. It was a sex-shaming Christian fundamentalist household. That's how she created those demons that possessed her. That's how the Dugars, Robert Morris, who served prison time for having sex with a 12-year-old girl, Mike Bickle, that's how Mike Bickle became what he was. He shamed his sexuality, so it took over as a demonic entity, and there, no control, no self-control at all. So whatever we're doing in the transformative correctional processes, it has to be a celebration of transformation. I was this and now I'm this. It can never be accompanied by guilt or shame, but it has to be known as truth. The primordial waters of the subconscious, the sea, and you must, according to Revelation 20, give up her dead. The things you've walked away from, forgot about, the unhealed trauma, the forgotten about things, come up and you see it for what it is. Oh, when I said this, that was in the wrong spirit. Oh, when I did this, that was out of this motivation. This is what was motivating me when I did this. Oh my God, I can't believe it. But I see it now, I see it now, I see it now. Now I'm free. You feel lighter because the Queen of Sheba will rise in judgment against what you've generated in your life thus far, while also blessing the gold, while also blessing the good stuff. What is it? 1 Corinthians 3. The gold and silver will remain and be rewarded in you, but the wood, hay, and stubble will be burned away through you, integrating through. Know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Okay. That way, Eve can now give birth to a greater, healthier, more inclusive, more loving spirit. Because the spirit can't do it. I am the Lord, I change not. Okay. The spirit is a hologram we create through our Mother Earth within. When Lilith has to rise up and overturn the tables, and Judgment Day happens, you depart old things, you reward the good stuff, and you then raise that up. And once you've raised that up, now that's the tree of life. That's the tree of life. Now people are noticing the double transformation. First you transformed into a being clothed with the heavenly. That's one testimony, and people were drawn to that. But now you've transformed a second time, and now you have on the wedding garment. Jesus spoke a parable about the wedding garment. He said there was a wedding, and somebody came in to the wedding, and they were clothed. They were clothed. There's Caiaphas, clothed with the heavenly dimension. He was anointed high priest. He prophesied accurately. Anna the prophetess, Simeon, they prophesied accurately. They're clothed with the heavenly of Moses. They were clothed at the wedding, but not with the wedding garment. And Jesus said, kick him out of the wedding. Jesus said, remove this man from the wedding. So you cannot attend the wedding of spirit and flesh if you think you're supposed to live above flesh. If you want to be clothed with the wedding garment, it's your spirit and your soul and your body, the soul-body fusion, and the spirit heavenly. The spirit is fused with the heavenly dimension. The soul is fused with the physical dimension. Mata, matrix, Mother Earth. The movie The Matrix actually appeals to New Agers and Christians, particularly white culture, because they are anti-progression. Jim Swilley once said that demons are just energy pockets in us that don't want change. That was when he did the message about the lunatic Gadarenes. He said, don't cast us out of the region. Don't cast us out of the region. In other words, they don't want to be somewhere else. They don't want to. They don't want change. So the spirit that is in the current priesthoods of white spiritual people, they don't want change. They don't want progression. So and it's been that way forever. When Galileo said the earth is round, boom, give him the death penalty. That's change. We don't want change. The Bible says the earth is flat. Moon landing. Oh, that didn't happen. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. That's progression. We don't want. Las Vegas shooting, Sandy Hook shooting. That's a sign. Remember, I will give signs in the heavens and signs in the heavens and wonders in the earth below, so that the new day can come, the great day of the Lord can come. Signs of the need for gun control. Oh, Sandy Hook and Las Vegas, those are hoax. That didn't really happen. 9/11 was a revelation that whether it was State of Israel or whether it was Al Qaeda, either way, it's Christian. Either way, it's religious fundamentalism using their God to create violence or to stir chaos. The revelation, the sign God was giving us was you need to remove all forms of religious fundamentalism, because more stuff like this will happen. Oh, no, it wasn't that. It was a governmental inside job. Everything. COVID was a sign from heaven that you, the human race, need to unite now together to fight your common enemy. Oh, no, there is no COVID. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Everything is a hoax. To the spirit, to the principality that's been kicked out of heaven, his wrath is great, for he knows that his time is short. Spirit over soul theology knows that its time is short. Spirit soul marriage with the wedding garment is coming about in the age of Aquarius. And for such people that enter, they see the signs and they see what the signs are saying. Gun control, progression in space programs, progression in through the BLM activists, progression in ethnic equilibrium and ethnic celebration of one another, celebrating our differences and not trying to say we're all the same, because we don't all have the same strengths, but we need to celebrate one another's strengths. We need to learn from the ethnicities, need to start learning from each other to harmonize. It'll take down the principality of hierarchy. All right, so in the workplace, I had several, I was a waiter in several fine dining 5-star restaurants. I didn't work a day in my life because I loved my job so much. But there were situations where women came to me about sexual harassment from some guy. So I would have the talk and they would change. Listen to that again. I would have the talk and they would change. I didn't send him good energy or visualize a better version of himself. That's not going to change. I had the talk, expecting change, and change happened. You know who won't change their misogyny? People involved in spirituality who left Christian fundamentalism, because the very message that brought you out of religious condemnation, I was born as the image of God. I couldn't possibly be more the image of God than I already am. I am perfect as I am, and anything else is so. Any correction, whether it be from the Spirit. You think it's the voice of the critic in the atmosphere, whether it be from somebody who knows you and loves you and wants you to help you, is seen as the accuser of the brethren and therefore brushed off as projection. So people who use the message of there's nothing to fix. I am the image of God just as I am. I am beloved just as I am. That's true. That delivered you from religious condemnation and Pentecostalism. But that's a door, it's not the house. When you get into the house, correction can happen without shame or guilt whenever it needs to happen. Spirit has corrected me in several instances in the last few years. I rejoice in that. It's greater liberty. There's a movie, it was called The Eternal Lightness of Being, or so. I just feel lighter every time I receive a correction. But if we stay in that first stage deconstruction for the rest of our lives, then you look back over your life and there's bloodstains everywhere because all the people you've hurt, and they came to you about things and you brushed them off. They are projecting from your woundedness. Because you can't know the truth and the truth make you free, because you want the only truth to be your gaze only at the masculine, the larvae, the thought, sperm. You want to just gaze at the Christ in you, and you think that all transformation will happen automatically without your knowledge, without your consent. And we wonder why we have rape culture in the spiritual, in the yogis, in the Christians, in the New Agers, Epstein class, Deepak Chopra. It's because you've been doing that to yourself. You've been forcing your emotions and human energies you've forced it to just come up and align with the masculine. And that is partly the chaff element of the Jesus age. In the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas 100, verse 114, Jesus said, I will make the women become men. I will make the women become men so that they might enter the kingdom. In other words, away with the soul realm, the woman, and just be the masculine spirit. The soul realm, the woman, that's the actual ruach that broods over the situation so that it might flower up into what it's supposed to be. Give birth, right? So you want all transformation to happen without your consent, without your knowing what transformed? No, that's not how it works. Know the truth about yourself and about society. Focus on that with the intention of transformation, not hopelessness. Hopelessness will never produce good result. But when we see things about ourselves that need to change, a pattern of people bringing the same issue to us, or Spirit can just illuminate you if you're open to it. You know, Jesus says to James and John when they wanted to call fire down from heaven, you don't know what spirit you're of. And I'm sure their reaction in their minds was, but Lord, we laid down our whole lives to follow you, and it's been a couple of years. What do you mean we're not of your spirit yet? They weren't of Jesus' spirit yet. It takes time. It takes time. And it takes surprises. It takes surprises like that that can sting. I'm sure James and John felt the sting of Jesus saying, you don't know what spirit you're of. Spirit. They were going by the Spirit, like Caiaphas. The Pharisees were going by the Spirit. You can't fast and pray twice a week like they did. Every Monday and Thursday, the Pharisees would fast. You can't fast and pray that much and not, walk in the Spirit. But they were walking in the spirit of Moses and Elijah. So another aspect of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was Jesus basically invoking Moses and Elijah, whose spirit essence had raised him to that point. And he says, goodbye. There won't be three voices here. There won't be three tabernacles here. One. Just what I've become now. Tree of the knowledge of good and evil was experienced in Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus. Jesus comes to him. That's Eve giving Adam forbidden fruit. It was forbidden to the Pharisees. It was forbidden to Yahweh in the Garden of Eden. He tries to curse the serpent of progression and wisdom, but he can't do it. Yahweh cursing the serpent of wisdom that's a prophetic vision of John chapter 7, where the Pharisees say to one another, this is in John chapter 7, they say to one another, have any Jewish people believed in, or no, they say, have any of us Pharisees believed in Jesus? And the consensus was, no, we have not. And then they conclude, any Jewish person who believes in Jesus is cursed, because they know not the law. They don't know the law. They're not scripturally aligned. They've allowed Jesus to take them away from Scripture. As Jesus disobeyed the Sabbath, picking corn on the Sabbath, healing on the Sabbath, disobeying Deuteronomy 22:22, the commandment to stone the woman caught in adultery. He's creating a new Scripture, and that's what's happening now. Age of Aquarius is going to create a new Scripture, because the Jesus age was Romans 12:1 and Thomas 114 are the same thing. Romans 12:1 is offer yourselves a living sacrifice, the feminine energy of the humanity. It's feminine energy in relationship to the Spirit, which the Spirit is initiation. The feminine energy of your human body, human soul, human emotion, sexuality is process. Initiation, process. Visual of spirit, visual of process. The visual does the work for you. If you can see it, you can have it. All right. So, Romans 12:1, offer yourselves a living sacrifice, is identical to Thomas 114. The women will become men. Soul will just act as spirit. But in the age of Aquarius, the ancients drew a diagram foreshadowing what the age of Aquarius would be like. The man doing the woman's work. Bearing the water pitcher was a woman's work. It's a man with the water pitcher. So now the spirit is magnetized into the human body. There's the descending process. We dwelt in ascension so long that the wheat of spiritual strength, the wheat of spiritual illumination, that wheat was harvested. Good job to all of us. But now the chaff is being revealed. You're so detached from human suffering. The Buddha was a rich kid and went out about in the area, saw people starving to death. And he said, well, damn, just don't want food and you won't suffer so much. So that's where that all started. Desire causes suffering. Just don't desire anything and your death will be easier. Oh, that's a coping mechanism. Do you really, if you're a white suburbanite, do you really want to live by an unhealthy coping mechanism that was designed for People starving to death? No. Context is everything. Desire is holy. Now, don't desire things that are not possible, but do desire things with great passion, things that are apprehendable, and enjoy it. Be present to it. Be present to enjoyment, because that's part of the wedding garment. Let your Queen of Sheba rise up, remove the overly detached chaff, and instead of soul becoming spirit, the woman becoming man in you, let the man become the woman. Let the spirit, so you will be no longer in Moses, which is the Garden of Eden, first man Adam, a living soul. You won't be the second man Adam through the Jesus and Buddha movement, a life-giving spirit. But now you'll be a living soul. The life-giving spirit has descended into the soul-body fusion, the Holy Grail, the soaring, Matthew 24, the soaring eagle has now descended to eat the new meat on earth. The stars have fallen to earth. The spirit magnetized into the human body to be colorfully, wonderfully human, with all the worlds of spirit very intact and very much at your disposal. And there's the wedding garment, Age of Aquarius. If you teach the Age of Aquarius as just more and more and more spirit identification, if you teach the Age of Aquarius as I am spirit and nothing else, because that is the Second Testament era. And when I was a Pentecostal prophet, that's exactly how I lived. I taught Christ is the only existent. There is nothing else that actually exists but spirit. And everything else is illusion. And the illusion will melt away, and you will realize, your eyes will open, and you realize what you are as pure spirit. And that's what I taught, and that's how I lived. And the end of those things came. The Matthew 24 end of that world came, and I saw the chaff of it, the over-detachment from humanity, over-detachment from my own suffering, over-detachment from healing of trauma, the over-detachment of societal issues. It was so over-detached that you were too heavenly to be of any earthly good, other than giving off a good vibration. That's about it. So the visual of my Queen of Sheba rose up and destroyed that whole field, though I had acquired the gold, the wheat from it, destroyed that whole field, destroyed that generation, what I had generated, over detachment, and Mother Eve piped up in me and gave birth to the wedding garment.